Hey everyone, welcome back to Inventing Construction. I'm Ross Griffin, and today's topic is the future of collaboration in the construction industry. We'll dig a little deeper into really what we believe is going to be the value creation in the future. It's not necessarily technology and software, it's actually the process, it's people, it's mind shift change. So let's dig a little deeper. Today's subtopics is what is Blocks and what is its mission? How has Blocks seen the industry change over the last number of years? What are the main topics being discussed by Blocks clients? And what does the future look like for Blocks and the industry? But Martina, over to you perhaps. Can you introduce yourself and tell people your name, because I think I butchered it.
Yes, of course. Yeah, my name is Martine, and I usually skip the Reinhold part. It's something I have from my husband, so I just jump into the Kildeby. But it was close enough. Martine Reinhold Kildeby.
Excellent.
And I work in our international team at BLOXHUB. And it's kind of being on the edge of 400 companies and organizations that all have knowledge within urban development in many different ways. And the whole world on the other side. So,
and your role there, Martina?
Yeah, it's actually utilizing and optimizing all of this knowledge, leveraging that into the world where we can collaborate with other partners around creating better cities worldwide, really.
And for our listeners out there, Blocks, it's located in Copenhagen. Actually, our offices are located in Blocks, which is really cool. We moved in there earlier this year. But the companies and organizations within Blocks all come from the built environment, I think, the construction industry or real estate industry or something like that. It's kind of an ecosystem or hub for innovation and so on within that real estate construction industry. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. At least that was how it started. It's partially funded by the private fund called Real Dania. And the idea was actually to move the construction industry forward, to make people collaborate in new ways. And since in the last 8 years, it has grown, I would say, to the construction, more partners in the construction value chain, but also other partners that kind of relate to the urban environment in different ways. So it's looking into how do we create our built environment in the future.
And what's Blocks' mission? What's the purpose of that? Bringing companies together, we can see and improve collaboration, but at the very heart of it, is that what that is, or is there something a little bit?
Yeah, it is. It is an unusual non-profit because we actually have a quite defined mission, and that is to create better, sustainable, more livable and resilient cities worldwide. So we are going for the impact part, and we collaborate with our 400 members that are both companies, institutions, organizations, in all the ways we can to actually make that happen.
Do you know if there's anything like that elsewhere in the Nordics or in Europe or around the world?
Yeah, some part of my job is to work with our, what we call strategic partners around the world that are other hubs like us. And I haven't really found one that does exactly what we do. Yeah. I think the combination of activating all of this knowledge and having this very focused mission is quite unique. So that's, of course, also a fun place to be.
Yeah, I remember when Blocks was being built and the excitement around what it was going to be and so on, and it's a super building overlooking the harbour. For anybody, you should Google it, have a look at the visuals out of the office space in BLOXHUB. It's really super. And if you're ever in Copenhagen, you can go and visit. They're more than happy to show people around the building and to discuss exactly what Martina has been describing to us. So how long have you been with Blocks, Martina?
I have been with Blocks almost 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah. So, and it's really been a journey because it started with a mission to actually get people in the building industry, the construction industry together to make them work across the value chain and from different disciplines to actually accelerate the innovation in the industry. And from there, when it actually started to fill up with people, the physical space that you just explained about, it just grew into a hub where we can actually share this knowledge, not only across this industry, but across different disciplines, and now also to a high degree across borders.
Yeah.
And the latter part is what I do every day.
And we talk a lot about on the podcast here about the lack of collaboration and the need for more collaboration within the industry between disciplines, from the clients right down to the suppliers, being more, coordinated in our delivery and understanding the needs of the different stakeholders. And that's really not very traditional for the construction industry. So you guys have a big job ahead of you if you're going to change it. But I have a question. So in the last kind of 5 years since you've come into Blocks, what has been the biggest change, do you think, from your experience in that period?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that when we started bringing these stakeholders together from across the industry and got them into a room to simply discuss the biggest challenges, why are we not innovative enough? Why are we not changing the things we want to change? That just bringing people together like that was a big change, a new way of working, you can say.
Yeah.
And we just saw so much value come out of that, both the discussions, but also really highlighting where are the bottlenecks in the work that we want to do together. And when all the people are in the same room and you kind of agree what the challenges are and how we can solve them, you not only just look into one problem and try to solve that, you actually create collaboration in a whole new way across the stakeholders. So I think that changed, that mindset of how do we collaborate and the ways we collaborate have really changed over the years. And I think the competition part have more and more been put a little bit aside to push forward the collaboration side of things, so we can actually learn from each other. And I think that has really been a massive change.
And do you feel that is filtering out from Blocks out into the industry now? Do you feel that the industry itself is looking for more collaboration, more, I'd say, coming together to solve these problems? Or is it in isolation within this ecosystem that you guys have created within Blocks?
No, I really see that it's out there more and more, I would say. And some proof of that is that in Denmark, the big players in the building industry or construction industry have actually gone together and asked for more regulation, more strict regulation from the ministries to actually give them equal base to live up to even more, you can say, positive or ambitious standards.
Yeah, super. It's super interesting because we can all understand from the industry that we work in, if we're trying to solve a problem in isolation, we'll solve it for ourselves, but we won't actually understand how it's affecting everybody else outside the silo we're working in, right?
Exactly.
So we solve a problem momentarily just for us.
Yeah.
And then, well, who cares what happens to the other stakeholders? That's their problem. That was the traditional way of looking at it, really.
Yeah, and when they start working together, they not only kind of benefit from getting the challenge solved, they also see where are there actually holes in the market between me and the other stakeholders. So where could we maybe go together and actually make new value propositions to the market? Where can we strengthen our proposition? And there's really also a big innovation journey in collaborating like this. So I think many of the companies isolated look at themselves and say, we actually grow and need to work this way to be future proof. So it's more like that mind change that we have been successful with making in many.
Something that comes to my mind then is that if the industry itself is driving this more collaborative change, in our universities, we're still educating in silos, aren't we? Are we still educating architects as architects and engineers as engineers and construction managers or building constructor as building constructor? Is there enough of collaboration in universities, I wonder, in order to facilitate collaboration in the industry once the students come out?
Well, probably not enough. It's a challenge no matter where you look in the society and different organizations and institutions. We work way too much in silos, and it's the same in the universities. But also that we try to kind of merge that gap. We also have a big focus on increasing collaboration between the academical side of things and the company side. So also here we try to make a smoother transition, but I do think that more and more that is the direction it's going in, because if you want to implement change, you really need to do it in a horizontal way and not in verticals.
It has to be from all directions, doesn't it? Top down, bottom up, left to right, right to left.
Exactly.
In order to have an impact in it. The industry itself is quite historically, it's quite a difficult industry to change. And I imagine that the universities and the institutions are quite similar in that sense, that change is also quite slow within them. So this mission that you guys are on isn't something that's over a year or 6 months, right? This is a long-term mission that you're looking at.
Yeah, it for sure it's a long-term mission, and when you look ahead, it always seems like things are going really slowly, and we should speed up. And when you look back and say, where were we 5 years ago? A lot of things have actually already happened. So there's kind of also a tendency to maybe be more negative about the transition. It's so slow, but a lot of things are really happening, and we see investors and developers asking for these solutions now that wouldn't have happened 5 years ago. And I think there is a general understanding of no longer if we should do this, but when and how we should do this. And I even think the when is pretty much now for everybody. So what's left is the how. You know, how do we actually collaborate these ways and work together in new ways? And that's where we have some answers at BLOXHUB.
We do a lot of discussions. We have a lot of discussions on BIM and building information modeling and information management. In reality, I think BIM is now becoming less and less, and its information management is becoming more and more. But these discussions happen around the world, and in some countries the question is still if there's value in it rather than when and how. And it's interesting to be able to reflect then on the progress in Denmark over the last 15 years, and looking at Blocks as an example of collaborative environments for our industry. We can actually show the world that, you know, there is value in this. It's worth investing. It's worth doing this type of change within the industry. And I think that's there's a super powerful message for that. On your clients, then, what are the main kind of topics that your clients are discussing or asking for at the moment when they come talk to you or they knock on your door? I guess no one's knocking on doors anymore.
Yeah, I think a big challenge that are still being discussed, or more challenges that are being discussed, is of course the scalability of things. You know, there's been a lot of great collaboration examples, and we have done this in many different kinds of construction. But of course, it's a challenge. How do we scale that? And this is where the data part comes in, right? So it's so important that we have these data sets to actually being able to scale this, especially when you look into circularity, for example, the materials. How do we label them? Where do we find them? Where do we keep them? So that is extremely important. And luckily, a lot of companies are working within this area today. So the scalability is very much on everybody's minds. How do we do that? And also, of course, the risk load that you have in these projects. How do we share that risk? And also, those topics are something that we discuss with all the stakeholders at BLOXHUB. So it's a good setting to actually discuss something that is quite complex and difficult like this.
I think the scalability is an interesting one, because if you look at the industry today, when it comes to kind of labor force and the availability of labor force, we're at a shortage. Every company needs more people. And the reality is they're not available. They're not available to us on the global market. No. From our perspective, looking at kind of digital quantity surveyors or quantity surveyors with a digital mindset and focus, they're very few and far between within the industry. If there's anybody out there listening, please contact me, because we're looking to hire. But so we have to look at alternative approaches to how we do our work, so we can do more with less, more with the people that we have, be more efficient, remove all that inefficiency, become more digital, and concentrate on the data is a very key point there, I think. For the future of businesses, we think that's the only way we're going to be able to scale.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to scale by hiring more people. That's just not going to happen in the future. It's going to be impossible, actually.
Yeah.
I've been reading some reports, companies, promoting that they're going to hire X number of 100 people inside in certain industries. And I'm looking at it going, where are you going to get these people? Where are they going to come from? Because they're not going to come from local industry. You can't. It's impossible because everybody's looking for people. So you're going to have to look at efficiency rather than numbers in the future. And that's something that's very key for us, I would say. But I wonder, like, when we speak to clients or we have discussions with our clients around data, a lot of our clients don't really understand what it is that we mean when we say data, especially when it comes to economy and cost. No one collects that information. So when you talk about data then to your clients, is it a broad kind of concept when it comes to data, or is it very specific around certain focus areas, or what exactly are your clients looking for?
Yeah, we have more companies that work with gathering very specific data at BLOXHUB. But we, of course, as an organization, talk about it in more general terms. How should we actually use data? But we also put forward some really, you can say, examples that actually show what we mean when we say data. So it's also about thinking about new data parameters that we didn't think of before. So it's both like the quantity and the quality of data that we want to change. And also we actually add this very, you can say, this hardcore area of looking into data, gathering data with the very soft skills. So it's two elements that we need to put forward together. So we say, yes, we need to think about data in new ways, collecting the data, how do we use the data, not least, but also the systemic change. On the other hand, how do the people we then have working with these things, how do we optimize the collaboration between them so that we systemically also change the way we present this data and we utilize this data across the different stakeholders, right? Yeah. So it's on both ends of that scale, you can say. So it's not data alone. That's very important.
I think that soft skill is super key because you can have as much analytics and as many analytics based on many different data sets as you want, but if you can't present it to the people that need to understand it to be able to make the decision,
exactly,
then is it worthless? You know, we hear an awful lot that the real future skills will be the soft skills. They'll be the skills that people will be looking to hire on, not the hard skills that we traditionally would hire on. That all the soft skills will be the kind of focus areas because we'll still need to be able to collaborate with people. We'll need to be able to present messages and communication, and all of that is that soft skill aspect. So it's interesting that you guys have identified that both the data set, whatever data you're talking about here, could be internal kind of business information. It could also be external in terms of client information that you're talking about, but nevertheless, it needs to be presented. Yeah. It needs to be explained.
Yeah, and you really need to understand who you're talking to, who you're presenting it to. So I think that having this understanding of who are in the value chain, do we see the challenges and the opportunities in the same way? So this is really the baseline of getting a good process going, right? And when you know who you are presenting the data for, what data they need, what data they're asking for, you know, that process can go hand in hand with actually creating or gathering this data, right? So I think that is something that we are very focused on. And we have a lot of experience now in actually creating these collaboration processes where we see how much value that actually creates. Simply getting people in a room, talking across these silos. And it's amazing what happens already there.
We're all looking at innovation, digitization, digital transformation, but actually having people in a room around a table talking to each other is still the most effective way of getting stuff done, which is totally bizarre, really, as we're running towards that digitization. We need to go backwards, really, don't we, to understand that people interaction structure.
Yeah, and we have actually been challenged a bit by that approach globally, because all cities or city leaders, they want to have a smart city. Yeah. They want to have an intelligent city, and they're just looking for the tech solutions to create that, right? And we believe that we actually have these solutions. It's no problem. We could solve those things tomorrow if we wanted to, but systemically we are not organized as people to actually make that implementation. So that's where the problem often lies within our organizations to actually work across these silos to implement the solutions that are not only optimal for one challenge, but actually solves more challenges at one time, right? So that is a journey we have been on to actually change mindsets here. To say we will find the intelligent and smart solutions. We will make smart cities, more efficient cities, but we need to start with the people.
Yeah, grassroots of it, I guess. It's the same in the construction industry itself. An awful lot of companies that are emerging into their digital transition start looking at tech, software. Which software will we buy to solve our problems? But no one's looking at process.
No.
And so what's happening, the way we see it, is organizations are procuring software and trying to implement it into a broken process and saying, this is going to solve our problem now.
Yeah.
We're going to deliver projects on time, better quality, on cost, etc. But software's not the solution. It's process you need to look at to understand how you're communicating with people. What exactly are you doing? What's the plan and the strategy going forward? And then you start to procure the software that sits in and facilitates these deliveries.
Exactly.
And so a lot of companies ask us, how do we solve this problem? And we always say, look, all the tech is already available. It's already there. Everything that we need to deliver a project digitally is already there. Yeah. What we haven't figured out is the human part.
Yeah.
How do we change our mindsets in order to be able to deliver that?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest shifts in the industry. It's not necessarily the digitization. It's the mindset of how do we train and educate people to understand that how you've done it before now needs to change.
But that's also our challenge, because people often ask me, how do you measure your impact as an organization like BLOXHUB? And where do you make impact? And, sometimes I try to describe when I see it could be city leaders or corporate leaders' eyes that they suddenly understand a change, or they feel a change. They understand that they're going to have to work in more collaborative ways. They need to engage their whole organization to make this happen, and look much further outside of their own organization that they have until now. That's where impact happens, and that's not very measurable, but it is really the key point in change. And of course, we work on that on longer processes. But that's the really fun part.
That's an interesting description of it, because we also get asked the same thing as cost managers, quantity surveyors. But how can you prove value? We say, well, this project was delivered on budget. Look at the amount of value we were able to negotiate off all of these claims. And usually what we hear back with, well, that probably would have happened anyway. We're going, well, probably not, but you have a point. The only way to prove value is you have the two same projects managed the exact same way, except one has cost control, the other doesn't. What's the result? Yeah. And no project is the same. It becomes impossible, right?
No.
It's just the case that our explanation to it is, look, you have kind of seasoned professionals looking at this particular discipline, focused on the delivery, where no one else in the organization has that, because everybody is busy doing what they need to do. And so that's the only place we can prove value, or at least in the initial stage, to show that, look, there has to be value in this if you have a professional looking at it.
Yeah, but I also think the way we measure value has to be rethought. It's the challenge that we can't solve our challenges using the same methods as we did before. So even the way we measure impact needs to be changed.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we are doing collaborations with the cities across the world, and we are being asked, how do you actually create impact here? What is it that you do? So we are starting to look into how can we actually make new types of impact assessments that have different parameters that actually also measure these soft skills and other systemic changes that we need to measure, right? So it's working on all parameters, the measurements, the data, how people think, believe, and how they imagine where we're actually going.
Yeah.
Because if they can't see where we're going, we're definitely for sure going in different directions, right?
Absolutely.
So it's very complex stuff that we're looking into here, but that also requires new ways of measuring the impact.
That's super interesting, because I've been racking my brain trying to figure out how do we deliver this message to our clients of the value that we can create for them. And a lot of the time it is around, well, if you have a project on budget, generally the the atmosphere within the project is much different. It's way more positive, etc., than a project that's over budget and everybody's under pressure to find cost savings and design reviews and all of this. The impact from the softer sense is far greater, but how do you measure that? That becomes a little bit of a difficult question to answer. But I guess it's something you could look into, like surveys would be one, I suppose, surveying the team on the projects, etc. But I haven't figured out the right approach to that one yet. But it's really interesting. And you guys are working internationally, as you say. So I know you're off to the airport after this to grab a flight to Helsinki. You're gathering a group of you from around, is it Europe or the globe? Can you explain a little bit on that one?
Yeah, as organization, we have to walk the talk too. And we cannot know everything within our small ecosystem it's actually international collaborations, but still we need to collaborate with other hubs to actually learn from them and to expand our collaboration frame, you can say. And that's why we have created a hub, a European hub on a regional level of innovation hubs coming together, say, what can we learn from each other? How do we work with creating these platforms for collaboration? Yeah. And more and more we see that it's actually these links that we provide that are missing to make the impact. We have the solution, we have the will, we have the knowledge, but we're missing the links to actually put these actors together. So innovation hubs and actors like us will play a bigger and bigger role in the future. And we definitely need to know, how do we do that most effectively? So we are gathering in Helsinki 7 innovation hubs, talking together. How do we solve these challenges? How do we activate people across borders so that you, for example, being a member of BLOXHUB, can easily access a hub in Helsinki or in Munich or wherever. So that's our aim. So it's a kind of walking the talk on the organizational level too. It's really exciting and
And from an industry perspective, the industry is international. We have companies, consultants working cross-border. So it only makes sense that you don't kind of look inwardly, but you also look externally as well to get that innovation, at least across Europe, so that like every company we work with works across the Nordics, across the other countries. So that makes a huge amount of sense. And hopefully it'll accelerate the innovation. So people aren't trying to find their own path, that they can leap forward a couple of years in order to get there, But it is super interesting, the international collaboration, I think, and we need to see more of it in reality. One of the reasons, I guess, the Cosmos are in Ireland and the UK is that what we're trying to do is bring the historical experience from what we've experienced in Denmark in digital project delivery, integrated approach, that kind of transparency in communication to Ireland and the UK, in order to be able to change it, because it is very siloed still. And we think that there's a huge amount of value in that collaborative approach, rather than looking at the one metric, which is economy and budget and EBIT and profit. All of that needs to be put in the background, so that we can improve the industry for sure. If we were to look at the future, then, Martina, where do you see BLOXHUB heading for the future? And then how do you see that impacting the industry in the future?
Well, I think we are getting better and better at sharing knowledge across borders, because, as you say, we need to work internationally, and we all countries, all sectors, all silos have something to learn from each other, right? So that's why we need to increase this international collaboration, and that is going to be the future of BLOXHUB. So we have been working with optimizing our collaboration models for the last many years. We have filled up the ecosystem, and more are coming all the time. So we are going to increase the international collaboration a lot, and we're working very much in the US and Japan at the moment, and we just see that maybe, of course, they are also ahead in many other areas where we are not, and this is why we can learn from each other. But they're looking towards Europe and say, okay, the way you are approaching this, we really need this where we are, so we can start collaborating with people there, know about the challenges they're facing, and then both our ecosystem and the challenge owners there and the local ecosystems there can be mixed, and create new solutions.
Yeah.
And this is really necessary to keep accelerating the speed where we actually also wanted to implement these changes, because we cannot all sit in our silos and just organically learn what we need to learn. So we need to work much more internationally. So that is the future of BLOXHUB, and then trying to make those, you can say, bottom lines in that matrix, not only the profit, but really looking at also the soft skills, and much more into closing the gaps between the solutions and very hopefully bold decision makers out there, and actually stakeholders that are going to implement the solutions. So the glue in between all the stakeholders, that is going to be our main role in the future.
Excellent. And for anybody listening out there, if you have an interest in BLOXHUB, as we said, just go online, have a look. You can also reach out to Martina if you guys have an innovation hub and you're working wherever you are in the world. Connectivity is key here. So reach out to us and hopefully we can help. But the way I see it, if I reflect on some of the countries we're working in, we can see that innovation in certain areas has really progressed, and in other areas it hasn't. And as you mentioned, learning from other countries, other organizations becomes key in order to be able to leapfrog. We don't want kind of companies or even countries to spend the next 15 years trying to figure out digitization or their digital roadmap. You know, that's already been done. Come and talk to you guys in BLOXHUB, and you guys can help, you know, with that process. I think we have a little project going on at the moment, which is super interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that develops over the next number of months. But in Denmark in particular, where we see an industry, I believe it's quite well developed in terms of digitization. What do you think the future for Denmark is? Are we going to become, is it more collaborative, more transparent, more open? Are we going to drive more efficiencies in the industry? Is that what we see, or is it a different direction?
That is definitely the direction that I see, more and more collaboration. And when I engage companies from BLOXHUB to collaborate with each other and internationally, they are so open, even if they actually are competitors in some way. They are eager to learn from each other and find that shared space. You know, where can we be in this together? Because they all need the inspiration from outside to accelerate. And I also think that we have an advantage on the cultural side of things, because we've always been an innovative country with not that many silos compared to other countries. And I do think that when we decide to do something, we are pretty quick at adapting new things, and hopefully it requires bold leaders as always. But I think that there's a good basis and a good ground to actually stay ahead in both the digital transition, but also in the more soft skills, because that is again what is really needed. So I when I compare to other countries, I see that the ones lacking behind is the ones that are very organizational, set in silos. They've been manufacturing for a long time, bureaucratic. It takes time to change that. And it's a mental change that has to be made. So hopefully both in both ends of this this scale, we can add something. But we have members from all over the world. So it's actually more focused on the ecosystem and maybe doing it the Nordic way. Doing it the way we think and work together in the Nordics. It's inspired from that. But definitely more international collaboration.
I think that collaborative approach is something that I've learned being here for the last 15 years. It is really that team environment, that team effort in order to progress the project or the industry and so on. And I can see from a cultural perspective in Denmark, if the direction is going to add value, then everybody's on board. Yeah, you might have a few that are questioning it, but generally the majority are on board. In other countries, that's much more difficult because it becomes political, and you know it might not satisfy everybody in terms of their return and so on. So there's always these barriers of entry, you know. And we can see it quite heavily now in Ireland when it comes to green energy. There's always these barriers of green energy. We have a hell of a lot of wind energy off the coast of Ireland on the Atlantic. but it's super difficult for anything to happen on it because of these barriers.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we can learn a lot from culturally from Denmark in order to make this happen, because of the value that it would create for society, the value it would create for the country. And I must applaud Denmark in that sense, for sure.
Yeah, and I can just add where you say the value it creates, everybody is on board. Often it's the value creation that are not visible to all the stakeholders.
That's true,
because if you create the right vision, most people can not disagree.
Yeah.
We want to go here. This is where we want to go. How we get there might be very different, but we basically, in the bottom of our hearts, most of us want the same.
So it's a communication thing then, isn't it? How you communicate that strategy and how you communicate that alternative approach becomes the key for people saying, yes, we want to do it, or no, that's not for us.
Yeah,
Back to the soft skills.
Exactly. It's very much, again, the communication, and also letting people describe their dreams for their city or for their developments. And what is your dream? They describe it, and it's not that different from the other stakeholders' dream, right? So if your dream is 10, 15 years away, how we get there is something we need to collaborate on. But just pointing us in the same direction is the first step. And that is also why we can, as BLOXHUB, come in as a quite neutral partner in these collaborations and say, hey, we want to share the knowledge we have from collaborations. And of course, people or cities or organizations that want to collaborate with us are interested in doing it a new way where they can actually make change quicker.
Yeah, it's super. But let's see what the future holds for BLOXHUB then and our industry. But we'll follow the path, hopefully, Martina, that you guys are setting out. Thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much for listening. There's a LinkedIn link below in the show notes. We would love to connect with you.
We hope you enjoyed it and have you with us in the next one. Thank you very much.